落点纬度北纬41度39分11秒，北纬41度39分11秒。
我是神舟13号，我已安全着陆，返回舱动力。
Welcome to the chat room live on CGTN. Total upgrade. We are in space right now. And joining me today is Mr. Yang Yuguang from International Astronautical Federation. Welcome, Mr. Yang. Please say hi to our followers.
Hello, everybody. Live coverage.
Hours ago, the Shenzhou-13 crew of Zhai Zhigang, Wang Yaping, and Ye Guangfu finished their 6-month mission aboard China Station and made their return home safely. What a success. Their return is also an upgrade. It only took them less than 9 hours from undocking to the soft touchdown. So today we're gonna take a closer look at the Shenzhou-13's success, the return technique, and dive deep into China's space project. We're also gonna look forward to the future exploration of manned space.
Yeah.
Now, before we get started, Mr. Yao, let's take a look behind us. This is our China space station, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think it's time for us to take a tour inside the space station. Let's check it out. Well, let's check it out at the inside of our space station, of China's space station. We're gonna have a special view here, but it's probably gonna take some moment.
Oh, great.
And just in a snap, we are here inside the space station. You can see it's quite tidy, right? Thanks to our Taikonauts' superb packing and cleanup works. They finished yesterday, right?
Yes.
So, well, before we get into that, we have another friend joining us in a surprise visit. Let's welcome CGTN's reporter Liu Jiaxin joining us from Moscow. And I think we're gonna say hi to her.
Hello.
Yes. Right.
Hi everyone.
Hello.
Glad to meet you all.
How are you doing?
Hi.
How are you holding up in Moscow?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Yeah.
Wonderful.
I've been in Moscow for 50 days.
For 50 days. Wow. I know that you've been
Yes.
away from home for a while, but I'm pretty sure you've been following up with the Shenzhou news quite closely. So yeah, today we're gonna chat about that. So yeah. Oh,
Of course, yeah.
Yes, Jason. I've been following your vlog, and I remember that you visited the Aviation and Space Center of Moscow, right? How was it?
Yes, of course, yeah. So it was an exciting tour. Actually, we decided to go to this Aviation and Space Center of Moscow because we needed some footages and the stand up of a package. That's because earlier in March the high-profile Russian-European Mars mission, ExoMars, was suspended because of Russia-Ukraine crisis. So we decided to take a tour to the space center and make some footages of their Mars project. And it's a huge exhibition hall with all full-scale exhibits and full-size mock-ups of spacecraft, of modules, spacesuit. And it demonstrates some implemented projects of the 20th century, and that includes the former Soviet Union and the achievements of Russian cosmonauts. And if you walk into the hall, you can see all this, and with a big profile of Gagarin hanging on the wall, his picture with a peace pigeon. And he's the first human who had been sent into space. So it's quite impressive. And, interestingly, all these kinds of exhibits remind me more of China. And when I look at all the modules, rockets, spacecraft, and the mock-up of the launch site, it reminded me a lot about our own projects of our, manned missions and space station project. So, especially nowadays that international global science and technology are quite interrelated. And that's why, previously, Russian President Vladimir Putin said that Russia will not isolate itself off from the rest part of the world, and he said that interrelations and global cooperation between countries, especially in space industry, should be encouraged, and all the moon projects and in like near and outer space projects will go on. Yes. Back to Chen Chen.
Thank you, Jiaxin. We'll get into the international collaborations part later. But I don't know, Jiaxin, I don't know how much you can see from your screen now, but we are inside the Tianhe core module. And as you can see, it's quite tidy. Yeah, thanks to our Taikonauts packing. And unlike us, who, when we were going on to trips, we probably just scramble our packages, our clothes in a suitcase last minute. They started packing weeks ago, right, Professor Yang?
Exactly. You see that before they go back to the Earth, they have a lot of work to do. One thing is to sort the cargoes from the Tianzhou cargo ship. You know that today the Shenzhou-13 crew successfully landed in China. But before that, but after that, there is a very critical step to the Tianzhou-13 cargo ship. You know that at this moment it is docked to or connected to the rear docking port of the space station. Yes. So we have a very critical step to undock from the rear docking port and then turn to the front and redock again with the front docking port. This is to free the rear docking port for the Tianzhou-4 cargo ship. So this is a very important step for the preparation of the Shenzhou-14 mission. So this is a very important step. But before that, you know that because it needs to be undocked and redocked again, so we must take the important cargoes, I mean the resupplies from the cargo ship to the station. If anything wrong happened to the Tianzhou-3 cargo ship, we still have the resupplies. Right. So this is a very important step. So that is the reason why before they left, they should turn the cargo to the inner side of the station. Of course, the waste, the rubbish will be remained in the Tianzhou-3 cargo ship.
So they just put all their leftovers or like garbage into the Tianzhou-3.
Yes, and remain the water, food to the Tianhe-1.
What else did they do before they leave?
Yes, and
inside, let's say inside the core module, what do they need to do?
They need to change the configuration of the station. We know that during their residence in the Tianhe-1 core module, the status of the Tianhe-1 is in manned status. For instance, the life support system, the environmental control and life support system is working. But before they left, they must turn off this kind of system. So the carbon dioxide will no longer be absorbed, and also the oxygen will no longer be produced by from the water. So this is a quite different configuration before they left. And also there are other configurations to have unmanned status of the station. So this change is very different and also very important for the operations until the arrival of the Shenzhou-14 crew.
So I could say that their main mission is to keep China's space station running when there's no man on board.
Yes, and also to accomplish all the critical operations. For instance, such as what I mentioned, the redocking of the Tiangong-13 cargo ship to change the position, and also together with maybe next month with Tianzhou-4 cargo ship. You know that the Tianzhou-4 cargo ship and the Long March 7 carrier rocket has already arrived the Wenchang spacecraft launch site. So we will see that launch soon.
I see. So the Tianzhou cargo ship, the next Tianzhou cargo ship will be launched when there's no people on board.
No people on board.
Wow, so that seems like a lot of work for the next crew, for
Exactly.
Shenzhou-14 crew.
Yeah.
Now, is there any souvenirs that the Shenzhou-13 crew is going to bring back?
Well, you see that although this mission, we know that the Shenzhou-14 mission is the last mission in our what we call the technology verification phase. So the major task of the Shenzhou-13 crew is to perform some engineering research and also to check if the measures, for instance, the residence in space for long term and also the operations of the robotic arm, EVA, these kind of operations is right. But also, you know, that there are several scientific research racks inside the Tianhe-1. For instance, they have the rack to engage in the space medicine and also space biology. So they have performed many research and also they got the samples. For instance, the blood of the astronauts. I have to emphasize that the 3 astronauts are also the objects for the scientific research. They themselves. So they should get blood and other samples from their bodies. So these samples, some are checked in the outer space, but some will be brought back to the Earth. And also, you see, it is amazing that there is a rack called non-container material making rack.
Mr. Young, let's take a look around. Do
Yes.
you say any of that belongs to that experimental rack that you just talked about?
I think it's on this side. So
Okay.
the rack making this kind of material can making a floating status of the material, and they can
that's
finally be melted by the laser. The laser can produce very high temperature, and then they can form a very ideal, very precise shape of a sphere. So this is preparation of the future manufacturing of material in outer space. And also, for instance, there are other special materials, some medicine, some crystal
That's right,
can
crystals.
be made in outer space, and only can be made in outer space if you want to get a very perfect result.
because of that weightless conditions,
Yeah, the
right?
microgravity is very, and also you see that it is very interesting, although they feel 0G every day, but still the 0G level inside the station is not high enough. So they do have another scientific research rack, which is called the high microgravity rack. And this rack uses hovering technology by some nitrogen gases to keep the higher 0G level inside. So they also have some experiments on this rack. Most of the things they should take back is the scientific research results, such as the material made by what I mentioned, the non-container racks, and also the blood samples and so on.
So all of these samples and their research results have to be packed, into their return capsule, right?
Exactly. So you see that we know that the Shenzhou spaceship has 3 modules from the front to the back: the orbital module, the re-entry capsule, and the propulsion module.
That's right.
Before they leaving, it is very interesting. This also need to take some waste to the orbital module,
Right,
because
so
the orbital module will be jettisoned in outer space, and so we can use that to be the dust bin. So that is also
Okay.
very necessary.
Okay, so I could say that these packages are the emblems, are the sign of their 6-month mission. Now, Justin, I want to go back to you. Let's check if Justin is still there, and if she.
Yes, I'm with you.
Great. So yeah, you heard a lot from Mr. Yang that the samples, the research results, the packages. I know that you were on site during the launching of Shenzhou-13, right? Back in October
Yes.
last year. So how does it feel like to you now that you're watching their homecoming ceremony from Moscow? Please share with us your
I'm so
memories.
excited. Yes, I'm so excited to see them landing safely and successfully. That all kinds of through all kinds of news this morning. I mean, because earlier, during Shenzhou-13 cruise landing, I was covering the parachute story. It's one of the key technologies that can, ensure the safety of Taikonauts. So there are three kinds of them, and when I saw this parachute, earlier this morning, I feel so excited. It's like I can see the insurance of their safe landing now. And I heard that familiar sentence from Zhaijigang, Wang Yaping, and Ye Guangfu that I am feeling good. I'm pretty sure that they've said this to all our audience during their spacewalks, during their mission. They're feeling good, so it's really reassuring to hear their voices. And I saw that they are all in perfect conditions right now. Their status quo is quite well, and they're quite energetic. Everyone's smiling. Everyone's so excited to be back to the Earth. It's like a 6 month, it's a 6 month voyage. It's the longest voyage ever. And, circling the Earth 16 times a day, it must be so impressive, really. So it reminded me of my previous coverage on the Shenzhou-13 missions. I remember that on October the 15th, it was at night. The temperature is about 8 degrees Celsius, and it's pretty cold. It's pretty cold at night, but it was clear, and it's a perfect condition to launch the rocket. The moon was bright. I remember the scene that the rocket was flying over the sky with the moon, just nearby. I was a few meters from the Taikonauts. I can see them all. And I was on one of the transfer vans to send them from the Ventiange, from the crew quarter to the launch site. So there were 5 of them, and I was on the 3rd transfer van, and they're on the 1st. So we just went through all the way, the exact road of Taikonauts road before they go on the mission. We're at the distance
as well.
The closest distance of 1.5 kilometers from the rocket when it launched. It was launched at night, and it's very beautiful. The flames are so beautiful, and the sound was deafening, and I can't even hear myself at all. I was waiting for the moment to do a stand-up, when it's blasted off. I prepared all the words, I prepared all my scripts, but when it was really ignited, I was so amazed that I could barely speak. During the moment, I can only see the whole process through the camera lens, through the camera, the little screen on the camera. Mm-hmm. I can only see the whole process through the camera, but I'm still excited. I can hear the sound. I could hear the sound in the background. That was really amazing. I feel like everything was worth it.
Yes, that was quite an amazing story from you. Thank you, Jiaxin. And we'll get into the landing site and the recovery process later. Now, before we get into that, let's have a quick review of China's space project over the years. Also joining us today is my colleague Gong Zhe. And Gong, I know that you're going to take us for a time travel back in the 70s, right? Please amaze us, Gong.
Oh, well, I don't really have travel through time, and I don't have the technology that's surrounding you that make it look really great. Hi, on internet, I'm Gong, the CGTN nerd, and all I have is some history lessons to tell you about China and the space. So, China has a long history of thousands of years, and through that time, there were countless people that have gazed at the stars, at the glimmering stars, and think about what is actually happening up there. So someone even put it into test, the story has it that there is a guy named Wen Hu who tied himself on a chair and tied like 47 small rockets around him and used that trying to blast himself into the space. That is back in the 16th century, like hundreds of years ago. Of course, that experiment failed, and according to the story, he died in the accident. So that's an unfortunate story. But with that said, his brave heart, his bravery will be remembered, and now there is a crater on the moon that is named after him. It is also called Wanhu. You can search online for the details. So for serious space exploration by the Chinese, that could date back to 1950s, after the World War II, after the People's Republic was found. And the first few decades was very hard, and China only managed to launch the first satellite in 1970, and that looks like this. So this is the Dongfang Hong-1, which is China's first satellite ever, and it doesn't really do much practical things. The only thing it can do is to broadcast a piece of music. It's loop the piece of music, and there's nothing else. But still, that means China has the technology to put it into the Earth's orbit. So later, China started in 1990s. China think the technology is matured enough to send people into space, so they started their manned space program. And the manned space program got their fruit back in 2003 when Yang Liwei, a national hero now, became the first Chinese astronaut, or like we all say now, Taikonaut. So you can see here that this is some recent achievements by the Chinese, and this is like last year, China's trying to do lunar exploration, the Chang'e 5 project, when China sent up a robot system onto the moon and collected samples or collected salt or part of the land and bring it back to Earth. So I know a lot of people know about this project, but the actual name of it is Chang'e, and I know many of you are still calling it Change. So, and here's the sample, you can see. And also China tried to reach even further beyond, and China has the Tiangong project, which rover onto Mars, the red planet. And it is still operating up there. And also for manned space projects now, China, since 2011, China started building the space lab, which is called Tiangong, and it's the same name as the station we have right now, and that's after 10 years of development. And so now, as also China performed the first spacewalk by I think in 2008, if I remember that correctly, and by Zhai Zhigang, and who is also one of the 3 Taikonauts that just returned from the space station. And enough for space history lessons, and now let's talk about the future. So this is just a render. This is a render of people's imagination. So we don't have. I don't think China is planning so ahead that is building something on the red planet, but China does trying to build a space station. After it is assembled, China will further go on to build maybe a research facility up on the moon. So that could be an unprecedented thing. And some of you may say that China is doing a single-player game here, that China is playing on its own and does not welcome others, but that's not entirely true. China has promised to, China is already training foreign Taikonauts and has promised to work with the international community, with all the space agencies about the moon research project. So that's all I have for now, and let's return to Chen Chen. She will talk more about the cool technologies behind China's Shenzhou-13 project.
Thank you, Gong. Yes, that's a lot of fun facts we learned about China's space projects, and also a lot of namings, right? So yeah, the Shenzhou-13 crew truly made history. And I just checked my phone during Gong's history talk that their return is truly a trendy topic now across all the social media platforms. Now, before we get into the techniques, let's take a look at the 3D simulations right behind us. It only took them 9 hours from undocking with this space to the soft landing.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Mr. Yang.
Yes.
Yes.
So the first step, look, This is a node of the Tiangong space station on the Tianhe-1 core module. The node have two docking ports and two berthing ports. The two docking ports, one of the docking ports is facing the front, and the second one is facing the Earth. So the Shenzhou-13 spaceship just connected to the Earth-facing docking port originally. So today, it's first undocked from the docking port and then change to a different position into when it is safe, relatively safe for the Tiangong space station. It performed the orbit maneuver to entering a different orbit, and then perform the other critical operations, for instance, such as the changing the attitude and also the two separations and so on.
Right. So yeah, let's get into their return process just in a while. Now before that, let's have Jiaxin back with us. Jiaxin, are you still there?
Yes, of course, I'm with you all the time.
Great, great. So yeah, as you just heard from Mr. Yang, that and also what we talked about, their return, the Shenzhou-13's return home took only less than 9 hours. And I know that you were at the site, as you said, you were at the site of the launching of Shenzhou-12 and Shenzhou-13. And after today's landing, what did you learn that's newer and better about their return this time?
Oh yeah, I saw it on news that this time it's faster in the re-entry process. It only took them like 7.5 hours as far as I am concerned. It like the spacecraft only circled like 5 rounds or 5 laps around the Earth and then entry the return orbit. So previously it took a spacecraft to circle like around 11 laps, and it took it 16.5 hours to return. So this time clearly it's faster. And I'm happy to see that our Taikonauts can come home, much more quickly this time. And also, I think I can keep you updated maybe later when I have more infos from the return technologies, and maybe I need to learn that from our Professor Yan. And also, as far as I'm concerned, the parachutes, the technology of the parachutes and the safety insurance are pretty much the same. During Shenzhou-12's mission, there are 3 kinds of them to make the deceleration process more comfortable for Taikonauts. There are 3 of them. So when you stretch them, or let's say when you hand it in a building, it's like pretty huge. It's a building I remembered of 9 floors, and there are one smaller parachute. The smallest parachute is a guidance, and then comes the second one, which helps the deceleration, and the largest one is the final one. We saw that. We can see that maybe even in eyes, with our own eyes, when you are on the site to get the Taikonauts.
Because the land is
so yes.
Thank you, Jiaxin. Yes. Mentioned it's quite easy to spot them when they return, as it's the land on a piece of desert, right? And we'll get into that later. Now, now I have to consult with Mr. Yang, and please correct us with some of the terms that we just talked about. For example, the number of circulating around the Earth, what is it exactly called? And also, how exactly was the process look like from undocking to the touchdown for the Shenzhou crew, for the Shenzhou-13 crew?
Well, for the that for the return procedure, there is a basic requirement, which is that we know that this time we use the Dongfeng landing site. The Dongfeng landing site must rotate with the Earth until the position is in the same orbital plane of the Shenzhou spaceship. So that is a basic requirement, because although the Shenzhou spaceship has the orbit maneuver abilities, but it cannot change its orbital plane. So we don't have much other choices but to weight when the landing site is rotate with the Earth, and then they are in the same plane. So this is a basic requirement. So the time for every day, they will only have one chance. So if we missed this this moment, we need to wait another day. And before that, you know that we choose what we call semi-ballistic or semi-lift re-entry, which means semi-ballistic.
Ballistic. Okay.
Okay. So which means that they do have lift acting on the re-entry capsule, and we can change the attitude of the re-entry capsule, and then it can change the direction of the lift. So during the whole process, this time we used a new technology, a new guidance methodology, and which can have a more precise landing. So this is the actual procedure, and during this procedure also because as I mentioned, the landing moment is fixed, and also before that the whole descending procedure is also is a relatively fixed procedure. So we also don't have other choice. We can only perform the orbit maneuver, change from orbit to the re-entry trajectory about less than 1 hour before the landing. So what we mentioned, the difference between ordinary return and a fast return is not in this part, because this part is fixed. So the difference lies on when the time interval between the undocking from the station and the beginning of the re-entry. So that's different. During the missions before, as Jiaxin has already mentioned, more than a day.
That's
yes.
12 runs of circulation.
Exactly. You see that we have a lot of things to do. For instance, before leaving the station, we need to close the hatch in the on the node of the station on the Earth-facing docking port, and then close hatch on the front of the orbital module, and then close hatch between the orbital module and the re-entry capsule. You know that we need to close 3 hatches,
Yes,
and also
go through layers of
yes,
doors
exactly.
to make
and,
sure
and
they're
moreover,
perfectly
we should
sealed.
have the airtight sealing. We should check the sealing if the sealing is okay.
The ceiling. Which
Yeah,
part of
it's sealing, because without the sealing there will be leakage of the air.
Right.
And
sealed,
but also
yes.
you know that between the hatch of the station and also the front hatch of the orbital module, there is a transfer channel. We must leak all the air inside this channel, because during the undocking, the air in this channel will have disturbance to the movements of the station and the Shenzhou spaceship. So
Okay.
we also
So
must
what can
do
we do?
this. Yes, exactly. After undocking, there are several checking waypoints of the Shenzhou spaceship, and only it has very relative long distance between the from the station, it can perform its orbital maneuver. Because you know, as we have already mentioned, before the re-entry, we should jettison the orbital module.
Right.
So there is also another requirement that the orbital module must be in a different orbit from the station, because to
Otherwise
avoid
it's gonna
avoid
into-
collision. So we have to perform just before re-entry. We have to perform orbital maneuver to lower down its orbit, and then only in these circumstances we can separate the orbital module. And the next step will be the another orbital maneuver, attitude maneuver, and the burn of the re-entry orbit insertion. So you can see we have so many steps in the years before, and in the former missions, we accomplished all these very complex operations in about 1 day. So today we only have 7 to 9 hours. So that is a challenge to us. But also because today we're already very practical and we are experienced, so we have confidence to accomplish all these complicated steps one by one. And also, you see that we've already discussed we mentioned the faster return. They also have advantages. You know that, as you have asked, the inner volume of the station is 50 cubic meters.
15 cubic
50,
meters.
not 15.
50, okay.
50 cubic meters is a very big place and very comfortable for the astronaut to live in.
Right.
But you know that although there are 2 modules of the Shenzhou spaceship, the orbital module and the re-entry capsule are inhabitable, but the total volume is only about 7 cubic meters. very narrow place. So we hope that the astronauts can stay in this relatively narrow place as short as possible.
Right,
So that is
that's right.
one reason to adopt the faster return. They do also have other advantages. For instance, you already asked about the samples.
Right.
You know that in the future, we do have the space biology and the space medicine research and also other research. Some of the samples has the requirement for the to be kept in a very good condition.
Right,
But
so-
you know that the re-entry capsule is a very small, like a small thing like a bell, so it cannot provide so good condition for keeping.
Yes.
So faster return can keep these samples back, and the ground staff can get them as soon as possible to get
In their
better
required condition.
keeping condition. Exactly. So that also is very good for the future scientific research. So that is the reason why we took this operation.
Yeah, so how exactly is the hours for return being cut down, like this time to less than 9 hours?
Well, we just reduce, as I have mentioned, reduce the operations between the undocking and also between the undocking and the separation of the orbital module. And during this procedure, also we have very complex things. For instance, measure the orbit and confirming the attitude, and also confirming the communication links. So during the missions before, usually we do this when the Shenzhou spaceship is undocked from the station or the target vehicle. But this time, several operations can be turned from the phase after docking to the after undocking to the phase it's still connected to the station. So this is one measure, and also we can do something in parallel.
For
Like
example,
not
which is?
the things in CR one by one before. For
I
instance,
see.
such as the calculating the parameters of the return, and also to do some other configuration settings. So we can do this in parallel to save much of the time. And with all these measures, we can shorten the period between the undocking and the separation of the orbit module. But I should emphasize, after that, the whole period is a relatively fixed one.
So I'm just curious, is the number of rendezvous around the Earth, has that number been cut this time as well? Or not
Yes,
necessarily?
exactly. As Jiaxin has mentioned, usually we have more than 11 cycles or more than 11 orbits before, but this time only about 5 orbits. You know
that
that
also
the
shortens
period
the
of each orbit
time.
is about 1.5 hours.
Right.
So this time is about 7 to 9 hours. We just come back. From the point where we have the orbit insertion to entering the re-entry trajectory and to the landing, the trajectory has a length about 13,000 kilometers long. Very, very long.
13,000 kilometers.
Exactly.
That's like,
from the Atlantic or the Africa to China.
that's right. Yes. So yeah, as I just mentioned, the re-entry trajectory, which comes to the most exciting part. Yes.
You know that there are 18 astronauts lost their lives in outer space.
Yeah, we don't hope that none of that
and,
can happen in the future.
18, and about 11 of them left their lives during the re-entry. So you can see how dangerous it is.
Yes.
Because you know that during the re-entry, the accuracy, the requirement on accuracy is very, very high.
So what do we do to make sure the accuracies of spotting our return vehicles?
We have several measurements. First, we should have a very precise measurements of the orbit before the orbit maneuver.
Right.
This is achieved by the, for instance, we have inertial measurement units on board our Shenzhou spaceship. We also have the instrument to receive the signals from the Beidou navigation satellites.
That's
so we
right.
can get a very precise measurement of its position and velocity. So this is the first one. The second, you know that on the propulsion module, we have 4 main engines. Each has a thrust of 2,500 newtons. So we only need 2 of them for the orbit insertion. So the other 2 can be recognized as a backup and redundancy to ensure the safety. So
Definitely.
the burning of the engines must be very precise, not too short and not too long. And also, you may see from the live coverage this morning that
Right.
during the burning of the main engines, there are also the working of the small attitude control engines,
Yes.
according to the 3D animation, because it is driven by the real data. So this cooperation must be very precise. And after that, it will entering the re-entry trajectory. As I have already mentioned, it is a semi-ballistic re-entry, and we can change the attitude. With this measure, we can change the direction of the lift. So, and also we have very precise methodology to ensure that it is as close to the theoretical
spot.
landing spot. So
as
with
possible.
all these measures,
Thank you, Mr. Yang. From what you just said, it seems like a lot of jargons to me, but it is because of a series of practices and experiments before from our Shenzhou spacecraft before that made our fast return and fast re-entry possible today.
yes, as I mentioned, we are experienced now, and we have the confidence to do all this.
Definitely, definitely. Now, for those of you who are watching our live right now, I'm sure you also have a lot in wonder about the return process of Shenzhou-13. And now I'm going to ask my colleague Gong again for help to take some questions from any of you.
Right, and I've been closely watching our comment sections in YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. And it seems like you don't have many questions to ask. Instead, you have many congratulations to share with the Chinese space program. And one of them said on YouTube, the entire world is proud of China's achievements on Earth and in space. Oh, actually, I have a little bit wonder. If it's actually true. So, you know, there are many China haters out there, I know. And some of them even said that whatever China do, it has to be wrong. So I think it's kind of, we need some kind of balance of view here. You know, that's why we're doing this in CGTN, to tell the world that China is not an evil country and Chinese people are not a bunch of evil people. We're just trying to reach to the outer space. We want to know what is going on up there. And you know, just like I mentioned, that the Wen Hu, the guy that's in 16th century, hundreds of years ago, he wondered what would look like in the outer space, and he tried to reach to this guy. And I think now we're just doing the same thing, but we're out of the same curiosity. But the only thing that's different is that now we have modern technology that can help us to actually get out of the to get beyond Earth. So I think that is the most important thing we should see here. And you know, China is not playing a single-player game here. We're now, actually, it is a multiplayer or international cooperation between China's CNSA and between the Europe, Japan, and India and Russia. There are many space agencies in many countries. So. This has always been a cooperation. It's never been a single-player game for any country in the space community. And also, I heard many saying that China is trying to become a superpower in space technology, and China want to become the leader and even get the so-called space supremacy. Well, it's not time for talking about supremacy yet. You know, China now. You know, it's the Iron Curtain have been lifted for decades now, 3 decades, and so it's not a world of such conflicts between communism and capitalism. That's old story. So every capitalism country now have some socialism in it, and every socialism country is doing the market economy. So it's no longer such a confrontation. I think cooperation is more like the main theme of the world now. I know that there's a special military operation in Ukraine, but you look at the larger scale, it's not the mainstream the mainstream way of doing international relations right now. And also, I see someone saying that there is 5G technology in Tiangong space station. Well, maybe not exactly. 5G is a specific technology that uses electromagnetic waves to communicate, but the same frequency may be used by different technologies other than 5G. So it's more complicated than many people think. It's not like you send a satellite in the orbit and it can emit 5G signal like a router. It's not that easy, okay? And if you're interested in this, you can check out CGTN's reportings on and especially our explainers and tech breakdown series to check out those. We have many knowledge for you to explore. And so this is what I can see for now. So maybe I should give the stage back to Chen Chen and check out what she have for the later time.
Well, thank you, Gong. Yeah, you are indeed the nerdy Gong in her. Yes. And yeah, you give me a lot of jargons to learn every day. So please do check out our articles about the technologies for China's space projects. Now, very quickly, let's zoom into the Dongfeng landing site that we just briefly touched upon earlier. So this time, we chose the Dongfeng landing site in the Baidan-Jiaran Desert and the Gobi Belt in North China's Inner Mongolia, right? And I think we have a recap from this morning's live. Let's take a look. So yeah, we're now looking at the recap of the Shenzhou-13's soft touchdown, yes, with the main parachute fully deployed. And yes, from the sandstorm, we can see that the return capsule has already made the soft touchdown. And I think at this time, the parachute is cut, right? Is it manually or automatically, Mr. Yang?
Usually it's cut when the commander of the crew confirms that it has already touched down, so it will cut off the main chute to ensure the safety. And you may notice that what we saw is the smoke generated by the retro rocket at the bottom.
That's smoke and sand.
Yes, that's a smoke generated by the retro rocket. You know that we have a very special device called gamma ray altimeter. At the bottom of the...
Hold on a second. Gamma ray altimeter.
Okay. At the bottom of the Shenzhou's spaceship re-entry capsule. And you know that after deployment of the main parachute, the heating shield on the bottom will be jettisoned. So...
Oh, is it?
Yes. And after that, the gamma ray altimeter can measure the precise distance from the bottom to the ground. So when the distance is about 1 meter, so it will send a signal which will start the burning of the retro rocket and reduce the speed of the vehicle from about 6 to 8 meters per second to less than 2 meters per second.
That's still pretty fast, right? Because 8 to 10 meters per second is like 30 hours.
Yeah, exactly.
30 kilometers per hour.
But less than 2 meters per second will be relatively safe.
Okay.
Moreover,
what else?
And also just before the landing, we also have other procedure to raise the position of the seats of the 3 astronauts. And also, we have some sticks to dump the energy of the impact during the landing. So we can, with all these measures, we can ensure the safety of the astronauts. And you may notice another detail, that the ground team, including the helicopters and the ground vehicles, can reach the astronauts very soon.
Yes, they got there the moment the capsule touches down.
Yeah,
right?
they even got this video of the touchdown.
Right.
So how can we do this? Because you know that along the trajectory of the Shenzhou spaceship, we have multiple stations outside China and inside China. The stations in Africa, in Pakistan, in Karachi, and also the stations in Xinjiang autonomous region. So we have all these ground stations, and also they can receive the signals of the Shenzhou spaceship, and also they have readers and telescopes to watch and track the Shenzhou spaceship. With all these data, together with what I mentioned, the data from the vehicle itself, the command center can have a very precise prediction of the landing point and the deviation from the theoretical one.
Yes, I remember this morning during the live, we constantly heard there was one guy reporting the position of the spacecrafts 4 times.
Exactly.
Oh, I thought it was more than that. It was like constantly adjusting and tracking to make sure
so
that our
they need the update constantly to guide the ground crew and the helicopters to reach the newly predicted position.
So yeah, now that they are back home safely, but not exactly home, they have to be taken away for a while for quarantine, right?
Yes, they
How
will
long
take.
would that take?
Usually, they will reach Beijing this afternoon, but still they need a quarantine procedure about 2 weeks. Because you know that I have another example. You know that we have scientific research staff in Antarctica region. We have the scientific research stations there. There is a very interesting phenomenon that they seldom get cold during their time in Antarctica. But when they get back, usually it's very easy for them to catch a cold.
Oh yeah, I
Yeah.
saw that from
know.
the live this morning. They were coated with blankets
Yes,
and like
you know
covered
that
pretty warm.
the reason is that because in Antarctica the microbe environment is quite different from our ordinary environment, and also the same thing happened in outer space because we only have 3 people there, so
Right.
they do not have much bacteria or virus there.
Okay,
So
that's a relief.
so they will they can hardly get ill, but their immune system will be relatively sick, weak because of it is lacking of stimulations of the outer environment. So after they getting back to the Earth, they have a readaptation, not only the gravity environment but also the
Right.
microbe environment. So they
Right.
have to stay first in a relatively clean environment in this quarantine procedure, and then when they get strong enough, so they can meet other people.
That's right. That's right. And what's even more different is that they've been up in the orbit in our space station for 6 months.
Yes.
And I've noticed that unlike, let's say take U.S. astronauts, for example, when they used to take the space shuttle, they walk down from the shuttle just like walking off a plane, right? What makes the difference? You know, why could some astronauts just walking,
You know, that's
standing?
the difference is that usually for ordinary shuttle mission, as I remember, usually the shuttle mission is only taking 1 or 2 weeks in outer space. The longest one can take maybe 4 weeks in outer space. So it is a relatively short period for for the shuttle.
Right.
So this is one reason. So they do not stay in outer space for a very long period. So it may be easier for them to readapt the Earth's gravity because they don't stay there long. Another fact is that the space shuttle adopt a fully lift re-entry.
Right.
As I have already mentioned, we choose a semi-lift or semi-ballistic re-entry. So the G load or the G forces experienced by the astronauts is quite different. For the Shenzhou spaceship, usually the peak is about 3 to 4 G.
That's like us taking a roller coaster.
Yeah. But
for
a longer period.
of time. That's right.
But for the shuttle, because it has wings, so the re-entry procedure is much longer, and the peak G load is G forces is less than 2. So that's the difference.
Okay. So, are there anything else that the Shenzhou crew is gonna do during the following weeks?
Well, you may notice this morning that although they stayed in outer space, the Shenzhou-13 crew stayed there almost double the period of the Shenzhou-12 crew. But
Right.
you may know that this time they are even more energetic than the Shenzhou-12 crew.
And why is that?
I think that is because you know that we are also have more experience and more knowledge on the life support and health condition control in the long duration in space, in outer space. We have more knowledge now, and also maybe the nutrition, the daily, the food, also the arrangement of their schedule is also more reasonable.
Yeah, I heard
and
that
also,
they got like over 100 kinds of meals that they're prepared, right?
And also they can even dumplings during the New Year.
Yes.
And also, you know, that's we have the treadmill, the space bicycle, and the resistance belt.
So they exercise a lot.
Yeah, they can do exercise,
in
but
space.
how much they do every day and how to arrange that is a problem because we don't have this kind of knowledge before. So this time, these kind of schedules and procedure
It's
are
also an experiment.
also optimized.
Okay, I see.
So we can see today they are in very, very good health condition.
So yeah, with their successful return of the Shenzhou-13 crew, the
Yes.
following crews of Shenzhou-14 and Shenzhou-15, I think they're itching to have a goal. And now that the Shenzhou-13 can enjoy some rest now, we know that 6 missions have been planned for this year to complete China's space station, and including the launches of 2 cargo vessels, 2 manned spaceships, and 2 lab modules.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Yeah, so now I'm going to hand it over to, again, my nerdy colleague Gong to tell us more about the 6 missions.
Okay, and you know, TIL. Today I learned a lot from Mr. Yang and about the details of the space mission, and I think I'm pretty fulfilled, and I don't know if you guys in front of the screen also feel the same. And let me explain something more about the future missions of China's space program. In the year 2022, which is this year, there is only, I think, a bit more than 8 months left, right? So during this time, China will launch another, I think, another 6 space missions related to the Tiangong space station. And the space station, you know, a space station is not like a whole piece. It's divided into modules, just like they have explained before. So they have to launch the modules maybe one by one, and also so there will be 6 modules to be launched, and 2 of them are cargo modules. So cargo, just like a cargo truck or a cargo ship, it's for stuff instead of people. And you know, stuff can be very important for life in space, because you know there's no oxygen in space, there's no water in space, so you have to supply them from the ground. And also you have to do some experiments up there, so you need a lot of equipment. Also, so in addition to the 2 cargo missions, there will be also 2 lab missions. So you know, during the first years of China's space program, they can only launch like a single lab to the orbit, and now they can launch many labs and attach them to a space station. So that's a big leap forward. So there will be 2. The 2 labs are named Tian. I think it's Meng Tian and Wen Tian. So maybe like asking for this guy and dream about this guy. Maybe it's the meaning. I don't know the exact meaning behind it, but it sounds interesting. And also, so for the 2 space labs, I don't have enough details to tell you that what these labs can do, but I know it's scientific. It's related to scientific researches to increase humans' understanding of the outer space. And also, the most important 2 missions, of course, are the manned missions. So there will be 2 more space crews that to be launched into the space station, and so their launch will be a bit different, because you know for the previous 2 manned crewed missions, the 2 crews have to be launched there and then get back, and then for the second crew to get there. So next time it will be different, because the 4th crew will be launched when the 3rd crew are still there. So the space program are calling it the rotation of Taikonauts. You know, they have the 2 crews will meet in the space station and maybe shake hands, maybe have a hug, and then the 3rd team will come back, and then the 4th team will be there and for the rest of the time. And that could be different. Just like you know, this mission is also quite different, because they stay there for half a year. That's unprecedented for Chinese. And that is the 6 missions you should look forward to for the rest of the year. Guess you have to stay with CGTN for quite some time. And that's all I have. So let's hand the stage back to Chen Chen.
Thank you, Gong. Yes, so as you just mentioned, from now on to the end of December, we're going to have 6 launches, and that's merely for the China space station, which is quite intensive. It's like every 1 launch every 1 to 2 months, right? So, Mr. Yang, could you share us more about the future crew of Shenzhou-14 and Shenzhou-15? Is there anything else you know that we don't?
Well, you know that according to the tradition, we only announce or release name list of the crew members just maybe several days before the launch. So we just need to wait.
Okay.
But I should also emphasize that, as Mr. Gong has already mentioned, and now we will turn the technology verification phase to the formal construction phase of China's space station. And the most important thing is the two launches of the Wentian module and Mengtian module. Each will be launched by a Long March 5B rocket.
Heavy lifter.
The mass of each of these modules is more than 20 tons, very big.
20 tons.
Exactly.
Okay.
And also the whole procedure is very complex. You know that just before the launch of the Wentian module, we must finish the task of the Tiangong-13. Because as I have already mentioned to you, that today the Shenzhou-13 crew already came back to the Earth, and then the Tiangong-3 still dock to the rear port, should undock and redock to the front docking port. And then, as Mr. Gong has already mentioned, next month the Tianzhou-4 will launch into the orbit and dock to the rear docking port. So the three spacecraft form a combination. At this moment, we have the initial condition to launch the Shenzhou-14 manned spaceship to the same orbital docking port facing the Earth, or the bottom docking port.
The vertical position.
Yeah, vertical position, exactly. So after that, as I have emphasized, is a moment for the undocking and the deorbiting of the Tianzhou-3 cargo ship to free the front docking ports. So the next one, a very, very critical step, will be the launch of the Wentian module. The Wentian module will...
Where is it going to be docking to?
It will dock to the front docking port.
So that's why we need to take away from
exactly.
Tianzhou-3.
To free that docking port.
I see.
So after the docking, we will perform many checks. For instance, the operation of the small robotic arm, and also the combination of the both two robotic arms. The big robotic arm already on the Tianhe-1, the length is 10 meters. The small robotic arm on the Wentian module is about 5 meters. But the two can connect together to form about 15 meter, a bigger one. So we must check this. And after
That's
that,
remarkable.
yes, and we should also emphasize that they will form, as you have already asked, because it is docked to the front docking port, so they will have a I-shaped configuration. During this phase, they will also check all the critical system on the Wentian module. For instance, the Wentian module has the backup of the life support system, and also have another 3 bedrooms for the astronauts. So, Mr.
So the room on the space station will be
6.
so much larger.
Yeah. And also, you see that even during the turnover of the different expedition teams, each astronaut of the 6 astronauts can have their own privacy places.
That's very
so
nice.
That's very important, I think.
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
And
Particularly, we host both female and male astronauts
yeah,
up
exactly.
there.
So there are 3 other additional bedrooms on the Wentian module. And the Wentian module also has the main airlock of our space station. We know, although
What does that mean?
Although the Shenzhou-12 crew and the Shenzhou-13 crew have performed 4 EVAs, but they use the node of the station as an airlock. But this is
The airlock refers to
to that. So you know that's the pressure of the station. The living quarter has the pressure of about one atmosphere.
Okay.
They must go. During the EVA, they must go into the airlock and close the hatch behind them, and then leak all the air in the airlock. And then only at this moment, when it is in a vacuum condition, they can open the hatch to the outer space.
That's right.
So this is a function of the airlock, but the node is only act as a backup one in the future. So in the future, when the Wentian module has arrived at the station, we will usually use the airlock on the Wentian module as a primary one. So the node it will be act as a backup. So both can have the support the EVAs, but it is different. So after everything is checked okay, we will have a very, very critical step to transposition. I mean, transfer the Wentian module from the front docking port to the side berthing port. So the side berthing port will be the permanent position of the Wentian module. Only at these circumstances we can have the chance to launch the Mengtian module, and it will dock again to the front docking port, and then change the position to the side berthing port, another berthing port. Only at this moment we can say that the T-shaped station has already been accomplished, and only at this moment we can support the turnover of the Shenzhou-15 team and the Shenzhou-14 team in the orbit simultaneously.
I see. So our space station will be transferred from an I-shaped to a T-shaped.
Exactly.
And that's when we call the completion of our space station.
Construction.
Construction.
Yes.
Construction.
But actually speaking, this is the only initial phase for our space station. Our station is also extendable. In the future, it is possible, technically speaking, to launch another core module called the secondary core module. With this secondary core module,
Well, Mr. Yang, let's hold on a moment there before we go into the future.
Okay.
Now, let's take a look at our reporter Sun Ye. She had an exclusive interview with the chief designer of China's manned space program, Zhou Jianping. And let's have a look of that interview first.
我们也这个中国载人航天工程办公室多次说过啊，这个我们这个积极推动这个中国空间站的开放，包括向中国的科学家、中国的工程师的开放，也包括向国际上，对吧？国际上的开放，我们也做了很多这方面的工作，比如说这个前2-3年前，对吧？我们在这个和联合国的这个外空司联合发布征集了一批项目，最后我们批了这个9个项目，这些项目应该在后续的这个货运飞船的飞行过程中，就将被送到太空，送到空间站来具体的实施了。我们我们这个中国载人航天工程办公室也和很多国家的这个航天机构有这方面的合作的这个备忘录。国际合作啊，就说国外的航天员的参与，应该说是一个应该说也是很重要的一个方面，这也是很多人关注的，也有很多友好国家的朋友也很关注，这个我们中国载人航天工程办公室一直也高度重视这方面的工作。这个空间站早期，我们还是要保证它的这个，就是说，它的技术验证的工作的完成，建造的工作的完成，然后保证这个空间站的平台的正常的、安全的、稳定的运行。但我们会很积极的去推动这个有这个国外的航天员来参加我们这个中国空间站的工作，这应该说也是很重要的一个国际合作的方式。
Welcome back to the chat room, live in the Tiangong core module. Well, a simulation of it. And at this moment, I'd like to invite our guest from Moscow, Jiaxin, back to our chatting room right here, and dive into the. Hello, Jiaxin. Yes, and let's dive into the future of manned space exploration, as Mr. Yang just mentioned. And also in that interview, we noticed that Mr. Zhou Jianping talked a lot about the openness of China's space station. And also, as Mr. Yang has mentioned, we're going to conduct a lot more experiments and scientific researches as we expand our space station. Now, first I want to get to Jiaxin. What do you look forward to for China's space station in the future, in the near future?
Oh, yes. I look very much forward to our future space station mission. As the video just said, we during Shenzhou-12 and Shenzhou-13 missions, China has done some verification of the key technologies, and then so it can move towards its smooth operation later on. So with more rooms and more space, more lab modules, sent into space. This whole space station will become larger and become more complicated and sophisticated for people to do more things, and more international astronauts are welcomed to enter China's space station. And in a few years later, China space station will be the only space station in space, in our outer space. So it's I'm sure a lot of international astronauts are interested, just as Zhou Jianping just said. And also from Russian side, Russian cosmonauts are quite interested, to cooperate with Chinese, to cooperate with our projects, and they look forward to enter into our space station as well. And yes, so yeah, let me add something.
Sure,
Yeah,
go ahead.
Yes, yes. I just want to mention that as a female, I thought that Wang Yaping has did terrific things during her mission this time. I mean, she's the first Chinese female who's been sent to China space station, and she's also the first female who conducted spacewalks. She's also a mother, and she can inspire like millions of Chinese women to achieve success in all walks of life. And I'm sure she will inspire some other female astronauts as well to enter China space station to continue their voyage to explore. Yes. Chen Chen.
Yes. Thank you, Jiaxin. Yes, Wang Yaping's stay and who holds the longest in-orbit record is definitely a crucial point for China's space project, and also, okay. Now, very quickly, Mr. Yang, please share us a little of your what you know about the future collaborations and international collaborations at China Space Station.
Honestly speaking, we have very good cooperation with other countries and have international cooperation since the beginning of our manned space program. We know that our astronauts, the first batch of astronauts, were trained in Moscow, in what Jiaxin has mentioned, the space city in Moscow. And also, during the early flight missions of China, we get telemetry support from ESA, from their ground stations all over the world. Because at that moment, we don't have the Tianlian data relay satellite. So the coverage rate of our ground stations in China and in several other stations outside China is not high enough for us. So we increase the coverage of the flight missions of the several missions before with the help of Europe. And also during the Shenzhou-13 missions, we have a joint biological research with Germany called Singbox. And also in Tiangong 1 and Tiangong 2 laboratories, we have the cooperation, some scientific research with other countries. So we've already, that according to the formal announcement of the China Manned Space Agency, together with cooperation with UNOSA, or the United Nations Office of Outer Space Affairs, we've already reading the proposals from all countries to have the environment about our station, and 9 experiments from 17 countries has already been selected. So in the future, after the construction of our station, the instruments related to these environments will be brought to the station by the Tianzhou cargo ship, and the experiments will be conducted by the Chinese astronauts. As Jiaxin has already mentioned, Russia is interested in cooperating with us. So I think there is no difficulty if the Russian cosmonauts are trained in China and can visit our space station via the Shenzhou spaceship. But if in the future Russia wants to launch their spacecraft to dock to China space station, we have to solve one problem. You see that Tiangong space station adopt the inclination about 41.5 degrees, which means that the orbital plane of the station and the angle between this plane and the equator is about 41.5 degrees. So theoretically speaking, only the launch site with a latitude less than 41.5 degrees can have the possibility to launch a spacecraft to our space station. Well, the current launch center of Russia, including the launch center in Kazakhstan, the latitude is too high. So if they want to launch a spacecraft to our station, they must first solve this problem.
So what are some of the measurements or solutions they have to take in order to meet that requirement?
Usually, that Russia do have the launch complex in French Guiana. It is very close to the equator because that in the years before the European Space Agency has a deal with Russian Roscosmos, and they use the Soyuz spacecraft to launch payload in French Guiana. That the latitude of the French Guiana is only 4 degrees, so it is the ideal place to launch to any orbit. But you know that today we don't know whether in the future they can do this or not.
So yeah, but anyways, although China has been excluded from the International Space Station back then, but China has always remained an open-minded for any sorts of collaborations in the space. So yes, that's a lot to look forward to and a lot more to explore. And only together we can build a shared future for mankind. So that's it for today's chat room. Once again, thank you, Jiaxin, for joining us from Moscow. Please stay well. And thank you, Mr. Yang, for your insights. And thank you all for watching.
You all.
Thank you. Till next time.